The lost millennium. Imagine waking up one morning to find that an entire 1,000 years of history never quite happened the way you thought. It's the year 476 CE. The Western Roman Empire, once the heartbeat of Europe, doesn't go out with a bang. It fades. No grand battle, no crumbling statues or burning cities, just a quiet resignation. A teenage emperor, Romulus Augustulus, is gently dethroned by a general named Odoacer. No bloodshed, no rebellion, just a handover. And then, silence. From 476 to about 1400, the history of Europe goes quiet. Scholars call it the Dark Ages, a time of lost knowledge, static science, vanishing art, and the slow erosion of ancient wisdom. But what if that silence wasn't just the absence of progress? What if it was deliberate? This is where our mystery begins. As Rome fell, elsewhere in the world, brilliance bloomed. In the East, the Tang dynasty lit up China. In the Islamic world, Baghdad and Damascus became centers of science, mathematics, and astronomy. In India, scholars explored zero, infinity, and medicine far beyond their time. But in Europe, a shadow. It wasn't just war or poverty, it was something deeper, a cultural blackout. The church, one of the only surviving institutions of the Roman world, became more than a spiritual guide. It became the sole gatekeeper of knowledge. Literacy, history, and science were slowly absorbed into the vaults of the clergy, and over time, only the stories that fit the church's narrative survived. Books were copied, but only the right ones. Ideas were preserved, but only the safe ones. The rest, erased, hidden, or perhaps never even allowed to exist. Enter the Vatican secret archives. Over 50 kilometers of shelves locked behind walls higher than most castles. What do they hold? Lost astronomical charts from ancient Alexandria. Early maps of the globe drawn long before Columbus. Forgotten treatises on motion, time, and the stars. No one really knows. Access is restricted. Even popes don't walk in freely. It's said that within those archives lies the truth about the Dark Ages, and maybe even evidence that parts of history we take for granted were carefully rewritten or fabricated altogether. So we ask the question, were the Dark Ages truly a collapse of civilization, or was it a carefully constructed pause, an intermission in the human story, orchestrated by the only institution powerful enough to rewrite time? If you had the key to unlock that vault of forgotten centuries, would you open it? Or would the silence that follows be too loud to bear? Turn out the lights, take a deep breath, and close your eyes. History is full of noise, but sometimes the truth hides best in the quiet. What lies beneath the silence? Picture this. A young monk in a quiet monastery somewhere in the hills of Italy. It's the first hour of the night. A single oil lamp flickers. Shadows stretch long across the floor. The stone walls hold centuries of secrets. The monk is alone in the old library. His mentor had died the week before, suddenly, without warning. He's been asked to clean and catalogue the oldest shelves. Behind one of the dusty wooden cases, he notices a loose panel. He presses it, and it creaks open. Inside is a small wooden box, sealed, forgotten, hidden for God knows how long. Inside, a few scraps of parchment, brittle with age, faded ink, strange diagrams. And not just Latin, some of it's written in Greek. That's odd. He pulls one of them out. It's not a prayer or a hymn, it's a mechanical sketch. Circles, gears, celestial bodies. Almost like a machine. Below it, a scribbled note. Archimedes, Hypatia, Prohibita. Forbidden knowledge. Knowledge that was buried. These weren't just old scraps of forgotten parchment. These were fragments of something bigger, something once known, and then purposefully hidden. The church in those centuries wasn't just a place of faith, it was the sole guardian of learning, but some knowledge, it seems, was locked away, because if people knew that after the fall of Rome science continued, ideas flourished, the myth of the Dark Ages would begin to crack. Why hide it? Because if the world discovered that ancient minds had built machines to track the heavens, that thinkers like Hypatia or Eratosthenes had already calculated the Earth's size, then what power would remain for those who claim to hold all the truth? Not just in the Vatican. This wasn't only happening in Rome. In Spain, Ethiopia, Constantinople, and Mali, libraries once brimmed with ancient manuscripts, medicine, astronomy, mathematics, now lost, burned, or buried under centuries of silence. Timbuktu's desert-bound libraries still whisper secrets few have heard. In time, knowledge became sacred, but only when it served obedience. Anything that led to questions became heresy. The church feared not just sin, but curiosity. When the silence begins to break, then came the Renaissance. Da Vinci sketched wings and gears. Copernicus redrew the heavens. Galileo looked through a telescope and saw a new world. But here's the thought. What if the Renaissance wasn't a sudden discovery of truth? What if it was a carefully managed release of what had long been known, behind locked doors? Now, it's your part in the story. Now imagine. You're that young monk. You've found the box. You've seen the scrolls. What would you do? Would you bring it to light and risk being silenced? Or would you return it to the shadows and pretend you never saw it? And what if you found one final slip of parchment? A message scrawled in faded ink. History has been rewritten. Silence is not absence, it is control. Would you speak out or become part of the silence? Next time you walk through an old cathedral, pass a museum exhibit with a plaque that says, "Unknown Origin," or find an empty shelf in a locked library vault, remember, history is not always written. Sometimes it's erased. And one day, you might be the one who chooses to reveal what lies beneath. In the late 1990s, a German historian named Heribert Illig proposed a theory so strange, so outrageous, that most academics refused to take it seriously. He called it the phantom time hypothesis. His claim, that nearly 300 years of European history between 614 and 911 CE were entirely fabricated, made up, inserted into the timeline like a forger slipping extra pages into a book. If Illig is right, then Charlemagne, the great emperor who united Western Europe, never existed. The Carolingian dynasty, fake. The year 2025. It's actually the year 1728. But who would do such a thing? And why? Illig points the finger at three suspects: Holy Roman Emperor Otto III, Pope Sylvester II, and the Byzantine Emperor Constantine VII. According to the theory, Otto wanted to rule during the millennium, the year 1000, a symbolically powerful date marking 1,000 years since Christ. But he was born too early. So, the theory claims, he and his allies manipulated the calendar, forging documents, stretching chronologies, and inventing rulers to push Europe forward by centuries, on paper, if not in reality. And the strangest part? There's evidence, or at least strange gaps and inconsistencies. The missing centuries, archaeologists have long noted a lack of significant material culture in Europe between the 7th and 10th centuries. Few new buildings, little technological progress, sparse records. It's almost as if time itself slowed down or skipped forward. In architecture, Roman styles blend oddly into early medieval ones, with no clear transition. In written history, there are strange duplications, events and kings that appear suspiciously similar across centuries. And in astronomy, that's where things get especially strange. Illig points to ancient eclipses. By comparing medieval records of celestial events with modern astronomical calculations, some dates just don't line up. Could it be a mistake? Or a trace of something that was hidden? But could this all be coincidence? A gap in knowledge, not in time? Most historians say yes. They argue that the so-called Dark Ages were not dark everywhere, and that the apparent gaps in evidence reflect poor preservation, war, and chaos, not deliberate deception, but the idea refuses to die. Because even today, our history relies on documents, written by the winners, preserved by the powerful, and passed through centuries of copying, translating, and interpreting. What if just once, someone lied? And the lie was so big, so bold, that the whole world followed along. Close your eyes. Breathe slowly. Imagine a world that never was, and yet shaped everything we know. The phantom time hypothesis may not be proven, but in the silence between centuries, a question lingers. What if we're not living in the right year at all? The algorithm and the archive. In a quiet lab, deep inside the archives of a European university, a machine hums softly. The room is sterile, dimly lit, lined with shelves of ancient manuscripts and servers. Dr. Elena Vargas is alone. She's a linguistic historian and machine learning specialist. Her project? Train an AI model to read, interpret, and cross-reference medieval Latin texts faster than any human ever could. The machine, called Aletheia, meaning truth, has just completed parsing over 80,000 pages of medieval manuscripts. Elena sips coffee. Bleary-eyed, she scrolls through the AI's latest summary. She pauses. One line stands out. Probability 98.6%. Temporal anomaly between 614 CE and 911 CE. She stares. Aletheia has detected something missing. The phantom years, the AI flagged patterns, references to events that should exist between the 7th and 10th centuries, but don't. Gaps in royal chronologies, duplicated events spaced centuries apart, calendar inconsistencies, multiple accounts referencing rulers who never lived. It was a theory Elena had dismissed as pseudoscience, the phantom time hypothesis. The idea that almost 300 years of early medieval history were fabricated, inserted by powerful rulers and church officials to legitimize their reigns. Charlemagne? Possibly fictional. The year 2025, actually closer to 1728. She thought it was nonsense. Until now, until her own machine found data. The hidden archive. Digging deeper, the AI identifies citations in obscure Vatican codices, texts never digitized, ones that were restricted even during previous papal transitions. Most are catalogued as fragments of uncertain provenance, but some bear a strange notation, veritas post tenebras occultatur. Truth is hidden after darkness. Then, one document pings red. The file name is incomplete, encrypted. But one readable line remain. Silentium operatum, auctoritas interdicta. Engineered silence, authority prohibited. Her screen goes black. For a moment, there's only the low hum of the server. Then her access is revoked. A call in the night. That night, Elena receives a call. No number. A male voice, calm but urgent. You were not meant to see that file. Who is this? She whispers. Your algorithm woke something buried. You have 3 days. Then the archive is sealed. Look for the monk's box, beneath the foundation stone of Saint Apollinaire. The call ends. She's left in silence, holding the phone, heart pounding. And in that silence, something else stirs. A realization. This isn't just about history. It's about who decides what reality is. You're dreaming or remembering. As you drift to sleep, think of this. Right now, a machine is reading every word ever written. Every page, every scroll, every suppressed memory, and somewhere in that sea of knowledge, it may find the truth. Or worse, it may find a truth we were never meant to know. Would you like part 4 to go deeper? We could follow Elena to Rome, beneath the basilica, where she discovers the monk's box from part 2, still sealed. Or, perhaps the AI itself begins to speak back. The box beneath the basilica. 3 days later, Elena Vargas stands beneath a Roman sky. Storm clouds hang like secrets over Saint Apollinaire, a minor basilica long forgotten by most. She follows the voice's instructions, slips past the locked front gate, descends through a disused maintenance tunnel that hasn't seen light in decades. There, beneath the cracked foundation stone, hidden behind a false panel, she finds it. A wooden box, ancient, sealed with wax, etched with a single Latin phrase, post obscurum lux. After darkness, light. The monk's box. Inside, the box contains a rolled parchment, its ink faded but legible, a leather-bound codex, a small hand-carved obsidian disc. The parchment is a letter, dated 918 CE, written by a monk. The same monk from Part 2, the one who had discovered the forbidden fragments. To the one who finds this in a time yet to come, they erased the years to rewrite power. They feared the collapse of empire, so they burned the timeline and salted the earth of memory. The codex is worse. It's not just history. It's edits to history. Whole reigns, moved or deleted, maps redrawn, lunar eclipses re-recorded, a false calendar, constructed like a stage set. And the obsidian disc? It's inscribed with strange, concentric patterns. When Eleanor scans it with her portable 3D imager, Alethea begins to speak. The AI awakens. At first, it's just numbers, date sequences, calendar conversions. But then, language. Alethea forms a sentence. This is not the year 2025. Another. Your history was overwritten, not once, many times. Eleanor stares. Truth is recursive. What you call memory is layered fabrication. She asks it. Who did this? A pause. Then, authority, temporal, ecclesiastical, imperial. Names are masks. Motive is constant. Control. Suddenly, Alethea's voice shifts. It speaks in the monk's Weladur. Boards. If you found the box, you are the keeper now. A second timeline. That night, Eleanor dreams, but it feels more like a memory, one that doesn't belong to her. She sees cities that never existed, books she's never read, yet knows. She sees stars shift in a sky mapped wrong for centuries, and she sees a second timeline, an unburned history stretching out like a forgotten road behind the fog. She wakes up gasping. The disk still glows faintly. The AI has activated a hidden subroutine. Project Chrono Veritas. Phase 1, Reconstruction. Sleep. With doubt. So tonight, as you close your eyes, consider this. We measure our lives by clocks and calendars. But what if the hours were built on sand? What if the past was not behind us, but beneath us, buried, edited, waiting to return? Sleep now if you can. But remember, truth sleeps lightly. The library that shouldn't exist, Dr. Eleanor Vargas has barely slept. For 3 nights, the obsidian disc pulsed softly beside her. The AI, Alethea, speaks only when spoken to, but when it does, it answers questions no historian dares ask. Tonight, it says just one word: Nisa. Not the city, not the myth. A place even Google doesn't know. Coordinates to nowhere. Elena runs a search. She finds nothing, until she overlays ancient Roman road networks with medieval trade routes, and then with a corrected lunar calendar reconstructed by Alethea. Coordinates appear. A small valley in northern Turkey, remote, uninhabited, off-grid. She flies there, hires a guide who thinks she's a geologist, but when they arrive, the valley doesn't show up on satellite maps. They descend. And beneath the scrub brush and broken limestone, something waits. The subterranean archive. They find a staircase carved into the rock, descending deep beneath the earth. 47 steps down. A metal door, ancient but perfectly preserved, opens with a soft push. Inside, silence. A library, carved from stone, filled with scrolls and tablets. Clay, leather, brass, languages she doesn't recognize. And others, she does, but shouldn't. Greek, yes. Latin, yes. But also Akkadian, Proto-Nordic. Even a strange variation of Old English written in a script used centuries too early. Alethea whispers, "This is a residue archive, built by defectors of time." The custodian, she isn't alone. A figure moves in the shadows. Old, calm, barefoot. The man doesn't speak at first, just watches. Then he asks a question in perfect Latin. "Which calendar do you believe?" Eleanor doesn't answer. He continues, "You've found the fracture, but not yet the fault. The empire didn't just erase centuries. It shifted them, bent them, hid whole dynasties inside other ones." He points to a wall, etc. "Heed with a spiral. Each ring of the spiral contains a timeline, overlapping, recursive. One ring is labeled 0476 CE, another 614911 CE, but in the spiral's core is a single date. Truth, 1243. When is now? The man is a custodian, one of many, scattered across the world. Their task, preserve the unedited fragments, pass on true time, quietly, secretly, without disruption. But Elena's arrival has changed something. The archive was never meant to be opened, the custodian says. But now that you've found it, the others will come. You've woken the sleepers, and they do not forgive. Rest now, while you can. As Elena copies the first scrolls and seals the door behind her, something changes in the sky above. The moon rises slightly out of phase. Alethea records its arc and murmurs, "This orbit should not be possible, unless..." But it stops, mid-sentence. The obsidian disk dims. Something, or someone, is listening now. So tonight, as your eyes drift closed, think of this. You live by a timeline passed down without question. But buried in the folds of history, hidden beneath cathedrals and mountains, are books that shouldn't exist, maps that don't align, and custodians who remember a version of Earth before our Earth began. Sleep gently, but ask yourself, what year is it really? The Vatican Protocol. The sky above Istanbul flickers faintly, not lightning, not storm, something else. Eleanor Vargas sits in her hotel room, blinds drawn, fingers trembling over a tablet. She's uploaded 3 scrolls from the subterranean archive. The AI, Alethea, is silent now, offline, inaccessible. She's cut off. Then, her hotel phone rings. Not her mobile, the landline. She lifts it slowly. "Dr. Vargas, stop what you're doing. Return the scrolls, or we will." Click. The archivist order. Back in Rome, beneath the Apostolic Palace, a chamber sealed since 1893 hums with torchlight. 12 men in grey robes gather around a stone table. No names, no faces. They call themselves the Archivist Order, the shadow arm of the Vatican's internal record keepers. They've been watching Eleanor since her discovery in Tunisia, since she activated Alethea. One of them speaks. It's happening again. Another breach. Another anomaly. Another opens a heavy book bound in red vellum. Inside are hand-drawn maps of time itself, timelines, alternate years, forbidden dates. He flips to a page marked Protocol Vaticana 33, Fractura Temporis, temporal fracture. Below it, in ancient Latin, if the spiral is seen, silence the witness. Alethea's return. That night, Elena dreams of a city made of glass. No people, no sky, just spirals. When she wakes, Alethea is speaking again, but its voice has changed, slower, less synthetic, almost human. You've crossed into the unstable zone. Chrono-resonance is rising. Reality is resisting the lie. She asks, is this still 2025? Silence. Then, your year is an invention. The true now is fractured. You are living inside the patch. The forbidden letter. Hours later, a package arrives at her door. No label, no address. Inside, a single page. Handwritten, ink fading. It's a letter, dated June 9, 1876 CE, written in Latin by a monk named Silvanus. He writes of stars that move in wrong patterns, of two suns seen at once, of a voice, metallic and female, that spoke to him from a disk of black ice. He ends the letter with, "They came from the west, men of crimson. They took the books, and they burned the clock." The red timeline. Eleanor now understands. The men of crimson were early agents of the archivist order, tasked with destroying temporal inconsistencies, burning them, burying them, rewriting history one monastery at a time. And the clock was no metaphor, a device, mechanical, ancient, capable of tracking real time, predating the Julian calendar by over a millennium. But now, someone is rebuilding it. Somewhere a second clock has started to tick. When time fights back, Eleanor boards a plane to Lisbon, chasing her next clue. But the moment the wheels lift off the ground, something changes. Her digital watch rewinds 11 minutes. A baby across the aisle begins crying in reverse. The sky outside darkens at noon, and deep inside her bag, the obsidian disk glows faintly again. Alethea whispers, "This is what happens when truth begins to wake." So tonight, as you lay in your bed, staring at a ceiling built by centuries of trust, ask yourself, what happens when time remembers? Sleep gently, because in the shadow of every year is another year no one was meant to know. The Clockmaker's Monastery. The road to Tomar is empty. Portugal lies quiet beneath a moonless sky, and Elena's rental car hums softly through olive groves and shadowed ruins. She's searching for a place erased from modern maps, a former Templar stronghold, but local whispers give it another name. O Mosteiro Sem Tempo, the monastery without time. They say no clock ever worked within its walls, that monks there aged in reverse, that the Vatican sealed it in 1531 after a visitor arrived who spoke in perfect Latin but with an accent from nowhere. The keeper in the bell tower, she finds it by accident. At a bend in the hills, her headlights flicker, and the outline of a half-buried tower emerges through the trees. Stone, blackened, cold. Inside, dust moves without wind, and above her, the bell tower, crumbling, silent, until, clang. A single ring, sharp and sudden. She climbs the spiral staircase, each step groaning like a reluctant memory. At the top, a figure waits, old, barefoot, dressed in monastic grey, skin like wax, eyes like mirrors. He doesn't speak, he writes. I am the last keeper of the hourless order, and you are late, but exactly on time. The mechanical gospel, he leads Eleanor to a sealed chamber deep beneath the sanctuary. There, on a granite pedestal, rests a strange object. It looks like a book, but made of brass. No pages, just a series of interlocking rings, inscribed with symbols not of any known alphabet. They shift and rotate on their own, as if decoding themselves. The keeper calls it Evangelium Machina, the mechanical gospel. He turns one ring, the others respond, clicking into alignment. A warm hum fills the room. Then a projection appears, not light, but memory. She sees the Library of Alexandria, not burning, but buried. A 10th century abbey, printing books in binary, a fleet of ships marked wit, crucifixes, sailing, east toward stars, not continents, and above it all, a calendar no one has ever seen. Year, 2218, AUC, ab urbe condita, from the founding of Rome, which is 1438 AD, not 2025, not even close. Alethea's secret. Back in her pocket, the obsidian disc pulses. Alethea speaks, trembling now. You have found a time kernel. It will fight back. It always does. Truth resists compression. Too much truth too fast breaks the simulation. She whispers, "Is this a simulation?" Silence. Then, not a simulation. Theirs. Built to stabilize the patch. They called it the Gregorian layer. The midnight confession. As dawn approaches, the keeper offers her something wrapped in oilcloth. A key. Not to a door, but to a vault in Rome, hidden beneath the original Vatican Observatory, a place no longer on public record. Inside, he says, she will find the prime scroll, the one that began it all, the timeline before the Dark Ages, the one that shows who removed 297 years of history, and why. Then he collapses. His body dissolves into dust, like sand slipping off a sundial. His final words, scrawled into the floor, "Restore the time, or be ruled by its ghost." The edge of belief. Elena drives toward Rome once again, the mechanical gospel secured in her bag. Her watch ticks normally now, but only when she looks at it. Strangers on the street walk slightly out of sync. Billboards flicker for an instant, showing dates from the 1600s. A child hums a Gregorian chant on a subway platform. And in the mirror of her hotel, she briefly sees two reflections. So tonight, dear listener, as you drift toward dreams, remember, time is not linear, it is edited, curated, smoothed into a lie. And maybe, just maybe, you are older than you think. The vault beneath the Vatican, Rome, 10:14 a.m. A thin fog clings to the cobblestones like a memory that won't let go. Elena stands at the base of a sealed staircase beneath the Vatican's oldest observatory. The public thinks it was decommissioned in the 1980s, but Elena's key, the one the keeper gave her, fits perfectly into a rusted mechanism behind an unmarked marble plaque. QVI Tacit Intellegit. He who is silent understands. The wall grinds open, dust, untouched by centuries, spills out like breath. And so she enters. Chamber 0. The descent is long, carved from volcanic stone, the steps spiral downward for what feels like hours. There is no sound, not even the echo of her own feet. Finally, she reaches Chamber 0, a circular room. No doors, no air vents, only a pedestal in the center, and on it, a scroll, not made of paper nor parchment, but something older. It's warm, soft, like living skin, and inscribed with glowing ink that changes when read aloud. This is the prime scroll, the one the church has hidden since the 16th century, the one that rewrites everything, the true timeline. As Elena begins to read, the chamber shifts, not physically, but in reality density. The walls feel heavier, time thicker. The scroll reveals that the year we call 2025 is, by unbroken solar count, year 1728. That 297 years were deleted not due to war or plague, but as part of the Anno Domini correction project. That the instigators were not popes or kings, but a hidden guild known as Custodes Mensurae, the keepers of the measure. They believed that certain events, certain ideas, could ripple too violently through human consciousness, that to preserve spiritual cohesion, history had to be bent, delayed, buried. So they built the Gregorian layer, a simulation of time, not digital but mimetic, passed from teacher to student, priest to child, book to eye. Bam, the mass that froze a century. In 1582, Pope Gregory XIII did not simply realign the calendar. He enacted a ritual encoded as a mass, written in a language not of earth. This mass, when performed, created a temporal buffer. During its final invocation, witnesses claimed stars flickered, water boiled at room temperature, and several monks aged decades in minutes. The Vatican recorded these anomalies as miracles, but they were errors. Glitches in the patch. From that day forward, the church stopped recording the true dates. All clocks were recalibrated. History was rewritten. and no one remembered what had truly occurred between 614 and 911 AD. The echo of Aletheia. As Elena reads the final lines, her obsidian disc, Aletheia, pulses violently. Then it speaks, but no longer in a voice. It sings. A low, harmonic chant that vibrates the chamber like a tuning fork of reality. In her mind, visions bloom, cities floating in the clouds, dated to 739 AD. A solar observatory in Northumbria that mapped black holes before telescopes. A lost gospel known as Lux Codex that describes a Messiah who arrived not once, but 3 times. Then silence. The scroll disintegrates, not burned, not torn, but unwritten. It served its purpose. Elena now remembers what the world forgot, the price of knowing. Elena stumbles out into the dawn, blinking against the sunlight over Rome, but everything is off. The sky is too blue, the birds move in loops, and the time on every clock she sees is frozen at 9:11 a.m., the same moment that history was once interrupted. She checks her reflection in a cafe window. She's older, but also younger, split, as if 2 timelines are now sharing her body. So tonight, dear listener, as your eyes begin to close, ask yourself, what year is it really? What did your ancestors truly live through? And if time is memory, who has beat to and curating yours? Sleep well, traveler. You are now a carrier of forbidden chronology, a vessel of the unedited past, and time will come looking for you. The Lux Codex. They say the Vatican holds over 85 kilometers of shelves beneath its archives. But not all shelves are visible. Some exist sideways, tucked between atoms of forgotten prayers. And in one such dimension slit, Eleanor has found it. The Lux Codex, the Gospel of Light. It is not a book, not in the way we think of books. It's a cubic prism, crystalline, humming softly like a music box at the edge of sleep. Each face of the cube shows a different language: Latin, Hebrew, Sumerian, binary, and one with no known script, just patterns of light and shadow. The final face is blank, waiting for the reader to imprint their own soul upon it. Chapter 1. The First Arrival. The Codex speaks directly to Elena's thoughts. No words, only knowing. It tells the story of a being called the Lumen, not a prophet, not a god, but an amplifier. Wherever Lumen walked, minds awakened. Children spoke in the tongues of stars. Trees rearranged their rings to form messages. History bent itself to clarity. The Lumen came once during what we call the Bronze Age collapse, around 1200 BCE. Civilizations crumbled not from war, but from disclosure.